Hello, I'm Leslie Hooper,
And I'm Steph Miramontes.
and welcome to my channel, y'all. Today, Coach Steph and I are going to be reacting to a video by Stephanie Buttermore. As you can tell, I am very new to her content, but I will say she has a rather large following on YouTube, and I thought her video would be insightful for our audience because she shares her journey of gaining weight and then losing weight over the course of a year. And again, I think it's just pretty relatable with our demographic of client. And so, Steph, get ready, buckle up.
Now, when things really got set in motion was when I decided to do a mini cut at the end of 2018, early 2019. Long awaited video on the little cut I did back in December, January-ish. And I was also working on my trained abs every day for 6 months video. Yeah, 6 months later. And I felt like for this type of content to do well in the environment of YouTube, I felt like I had to make sure that I was really lean so the abs that I built would look even more impressive. And that was kind of the last straw, like the straw that broke the camel's back, that I was just sick of it. I was sick and tired of being hungry all the time, just so I could be in fitness, like just so I could be successful on this platform. It just wasn't worth it for me anymore. And like, I just couldn't see myself sustaining it long term. It was the spring of 2019 that I had a chat with Dr. Nicola Rinaldi about hypothalamic amenorrhea. Hi, Nicola. Thank you so much for joining me. Which is the lack of menstruation for 3 consecutive months or more. This could be due to undereating, overexercising, stress, genetics, or even a combination of any of those things. I was making a video on the topic, and she's an expert in that area of research, so we had a great conversation. But I genuinely didn't think that our conversation would be so profound. I wanted her expertise not only on hypothalamic amenorrhea, but also on how to fix it.
So the quicker you return to sort of that, to fueling your body adequately, the faster things can turn back on again.
And this was something that I actually experienced myself back when I competed, and I knew a lot of my audience was dealing with it. She had this concept of going all in, so full credit nonstop to Nicola, but her version was eating a minimum of 2,500 calories with no maximum. And from what I understand, this is in efforts to get your period back.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just stop it here for a moment and get your initial thoughts and feedback just on something that we did recently cover on the Outsmart Overeating podcast briefly with Agna. We talked about losing your period, and I know I experienced that through extreme restriction and overexercising. So I just thought I'd give you a moment to share any thoughts you have so far on this.
I also lost my cycle through extreme dieting and things, but and I think it's pretty common. I remember being in the gym and talking to a competitor one time, and she's a lovely person. I really like her, and we developed a relationship through seeing each other at the gym and just, kind of bumping elbows like you do. And her talking about her losing her cycle and how normal it was and how her doctor wasn't concerned. And I was concerned because I have been through some hormonal hell in addition to losing my cycle. I know how hormones work. So I was like, okay, we'll just let your doctor not be concerned then, I guess. But it was definitely concerning to me. One of the things that stands out to me about her video, though, that is kind of a diversion of this entire topic, is just the toxicity of that culture in and of itself. Like always the boob pickup for the abs.
To show the abs.
And I'm not shitting on her at all. Like, been there, done that, same. But it's just like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing the lean back, boob pickup, like pelvis forward? God, it is just so toxic. And then you think about these women and young girls and people that are scrolling through the gram, and then the gram is feeding them even more of it. And she is miserable, unhealthy, losing her period, being promoted as the picture of health and fitness and wellness, when in reality, her body's fighting to survive. So yeah, those are my initial kind of brain dumpy thoughts, not really cohesive, but here we are.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up the, I guess, glorifying of abs. And you're right, it is kind of seen as the pinnacle or picture of health, but it is anything but. She's sitting here talking about losing her period and extreme hunger and how unhappy and dissatisfied she is here in her life. So I think it's important that we show the other side of the story as well. So let's go ahead and continue with Stephanie here.
But it could fix a lot more than just getting your period back. It can help with brittle hair and nails, feeling cold all the time, feeling tired, and fix extreme hunger, which I knew I had. So I was super intrigued. After our chat, a lot of things changed for me. I went down a deep, dark rabbit hole on the internet, just exploring the idea of eating a minimum of X amount of calories. There were a ton of different permutations online of this, but I learned that this was a thing that people did. Like in fitness, it's completely the opposite. It's always about low macros and cutting and getting shredded. So this was a totally new concept for me. As a scientist, the rational part of my brain totally understood why this concept would work and how your body defends its natural set weight. But the irrational part of my brain thought, well, it probably wouldn't work for me. My hunger signals are probably just messed up genetically. I've always been a hungry kid. I thought I would be the one exception, like the one person that would just eat themselves into obesity. So I tried to find a few examples of people that this actually worked for, and a few of them were actually past competitors. The common theme was that they would just eat to satiety every single day, and at the beginning they would be experiencing extreme hunger, so they would gain a lot of weight. However, their weight would kind of plateau because they would no longer feel nearly as hungry after months of eating thousands of calories. And then, even longer after that, their weight would actually go back down to its natural set weight because your appetite has been kind of normalized after that, and it goes down to a normal appetite and your weight comes down with it. And when I say set weight is not like an exact number. It's more like a range that fluctuates throughout your life and is predetermined by your genetics and your physiology. So they would go through this process of weight gain and then weight stabilization, and they would come out the other side with normal hunger and satiety cues and pretty normal eating behavior, no longer feeling that extreme hunger that they used to have. And I wanted that. I wanted that so badly. I would just see that and be like, I want to do that. Like, that's what I need to do. But regardless of how badly I wanted to do this, I was pretty terrified. I had gotten to a point that I was just like, this is who I am on the internet. What's going to happen when that changes? I went back and forth for a long time. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to explain it to them and they'll totally understand, to no, they won't understand. This will be a complete disaster. You have no idea what you're doing, to, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go all in, but I'm basically going to quit social media so they don't have to watch me go through this. To nobody's surprise, gaining weight in public is extremely scary, especially on YouTube and especially in fitness, because people are savage. And I thought I would just be run off the platform, losing all of my fitness credibility, and I would no longer be in the fitness genre anymore because I didn't belong there.
Okay, I'm going to stop here. All right, Steph, now that you've had an opportunity to digest a little bit more about her story, her vision, her goal, or at least what she's flirting with, what are your thoughts?
God, I have so many. Where do we even begin? Should we begin with set point and settling point? Should we begin with gaining weight on the internet? Like, what defines being in the fitness space? All the shit. All the shit. It is everywhere. And it's so relatable. It really is. As someone who lives and breathes the industry, it is embarrassing to go through that. What she did was gain on purpose. What a lot of people do is lose their shit and accidentally overeat 2,500, 3,000, 4,000 calories a day because they can't control it, because they feel so controlled by food, so overwhelmed by the dieting process. So kudos to her, at least from what I can tell, that she was very thoughtful and decisive and made that choice, versus what I experienced, which was the wheels coming off and feeling like I just could not get my shit together until I had regained all my weight, and then I could diet again. But from the scientific standpoint, yeah, your body does defend a certain set point to a degree, but it's not hard and fast. And so it's really difficult as someone who I perceive her as someone who lives in a pretty thin body, and everyone she gave examples of live in a pretty thin body. So it's easy to say, hey, you're 120 or 130 pounds, you're a size 2'4", you dieted down, competed, got ripped and jacked, and now you get to regain some weight and then settle back into your 2'4". That is a very different experience than someone who is at the larger end of straight size. Maybe they're in the plus size or beyond, and they're just like, cool, lost a bunch of weight. I'm miserable. Now I have to go all the way back up there. And that's pretty defeating in the mindset. It was for me to hear something like that. And I'm like, my set point, like my body's really going to defend me at this weight, not the weight I'm currently at, but the weight that I kept ballooning back up to after every diet. So that was really defeating and scary for me to believe. And I'm like, that can't be true. I needed something else. So I think there's some nuance to this conversation that's missing. It's a 40-something minute video, so maybe it's there. I don't know.
So relatable. I feel like in a lot of ways that was my story. I can also remember reading about reverse dieting and second guessing. Should I try carb cycling? Should I do refeed? The chatter is nonsense because you're just looking for relief constantly. It's not sustainable. And so she's looking for that relief, but also in front of an audience in the fitness space where there is added pressure. Let's continue on and see where things go from here.
I still thought that you looked beautiful at this time, honestly.
After month 4, I slowly gained another like 5 to 7 pounds over the course of months 5 and 6. I remember after about the 6-month mark, my weight hit a plateau and I hit my peak weight of having gained 42 pounds. And 42 pounds ended up being like the most weight I gained throughout this entire past year. And at that point, I was really not hungry anymore. I feel like 6 months was a good marker of when I had very distinct hunger and satiety cues. So with eating proper meals throughout the day, I kind of felt like I was like entering normal eating behavior territory, but I was still really swollen, really puffy, and really sweaty. It was all very sexy. This was actually a really hard time for me. My weight was the highest I had ever seen it on a scale in my entire life, and I was having pretty regular breakdowns at this point. I just felt so badly about myself. And if there was ever a time that I wanted to quit and hide away from social media, maybe even start dieting so I didn't feel so big, it was 6 months in. And I was getting comments telling me that I was obese now and that my journey was a failure. And I think this is because in the minds of viewers, 6 months might seem like a really long time, but that's not long enough to complete an entire journey like this. But they obviously didn't know that. So it was one of the first times that I kind of felt like people were giving up on me.
I feel like it's just too much.
So I just wrote in my journal, as I always do, that you can't let this ruin all of your hard work. You've made it so far and you promised yourself you would do this. Please, Stephanie, like, don't forget your why. I would say those things over and over and over again.
Okay. Sound familiar?
Well, now you have me in my feels. So thanks a lot for that assault that I wasn't prepared for. But yeah, it's super, super familiar. And what I don't think people realize is that when you get that lean for any reason that your hormones decide to tank, it can take 4 to 6 months for them to even begin to regulate again, whether that's your sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, that kind of thing, or it's your hunger and fullness hormones, leptin and ghrelin, or it's your thyroid hormones, which, by the way, absolutely tank when you diet, even if you're healthy, that is what they're supposed to do. So your active thyroid hormone starts to reduce as soon as you go into a calorie deficit, even if you do it in a healthy way. So all of these hormones are connected. There is a system running behind the scenes, and it has to all come up and, like a symphony, work together again. It takes time. And I don't think that there's a certain number of pounds you have to gain or a certain timeline, but patience is key here. I definitely think that that was the journey that she had to be on in order to get where she went. But God, is it painful. It is, because your whole self-worth is attached to what you look like, and worse for her, because her self-worth is divided between what she looks like and getting that external validation, love, fellowship, community following, where even she said, I felt like they gave up on me, as if they are even real people in her lives. They're just assholes on the internet saying fucking disastrous things that she doesn't even deserve. It's like delete, but it feels so real. It feels so personal.
Yeah. I will say, to her fiance's credit, and we're not really highlighting him in these clips, but he was, I think, a huge emotional support for her through this process, because he probably saw how miserable she was. And I think he actually enjoyed having her not restricting life so much, being willing to go out and have date nights and things of that nature, where they're not just living by the food scales. So that's helpful for her for sure. But yeah, it's terrifying. I will say, it's interesting, right? Because when she was trying to determine, or she'd been doing her research, how many calories she needed to consume, that's not how I went about it. That's not how we go about it in the Unstuffed program. And I want to make that distinction. I'm wondering what were her guidelines? What was her protocol? How does she decide? Because if her goal was to not be hungry anymore, because she felt like she was chronically hungry, I'm wondering how much of it is psychological versus physiological, I guess is where I'm going with this.
I would guess some on both sides, but I would also say that I think that there's probably a lot of psychological, and just that permission from a doctor saying you need to eat at least 2,500 and there's no ceiling. That is just like a surrender to the process. Like, okay, then I guess she even said something about going all in, And so there's probably some of that in there. And you're right, we don't do it that way. Most people, if they are going to gain throughout the process, they gain 5 or so pounds here and there. But I have seen higher than that, and I was higher than that. But that was because I had just come off of losing 30 pounds. So I had to regain some weight and then balloon a little bit up throughout the process. Plus, I don't think she has the structure.
That's what I was just going to say. There wasn't a clear step-by-step plan and structure, and probably maybe there was a mentor or a doctor she was in contact with. I just don't know how consistent that was throughout the entire process. And I do think that that is a huge contributing factor, because look, as we often say, the hardest part about weight loss or weight gain is going to be your mind. It's not even what your body's going through most of the time. It's just all the mental chatter and the food noise that's going on that makes it really difficult to navigate those landmines, and the judgment and the negative self-talk. Our inner critic is just at its loudest. And then the uncertainty, the second guessing, I can just see how that would be difficult to navigate. And I do think that's how people can gain larger amounts, is when they don't have that reassurance or the structure, or somebody who has walked the walk in their corner and helping them navigate that. All right, let's move on here.
Journey, that it was like this triphasic or 3-phase process, if you will. Phase 1, you're really hungry and there's a lot of weight gain. Phase 2, you're less hungry and your weight hits a plateau, so it doesn't move for a few months. And then phase 3, you're less hungry than phase 2, and your weight actually starts to decrease towards your set weight. And that can take like however long. So from my highest weight, 42 pounds up to now, May 2020, I lost about 13 pounds over the course of those 3 to 4 months. And I feel very comfortable here. Like, I don't feel like I need to lose any more. Again, like, that's not the goal. Also, keep in mind that none of my weight loss was due to anything other than just my decreased appetite. I was not trying to lose weight. I was not doing anything special or different. I didn't do any cardio. I went for occasional walks, but I've always done that. I just ate until I felt full, and then I would stop.
Okay, I'm going to stop there. Speaking of stopping. Okay, Steph, how do you think of those 3 phases?
Well, yeah, okay. My thought is that it's a risky business to play that game because, yes, phase 1, you are super hungry, and phase 2, you're eating more and you're normalizing. And I like that she's like, I ate when I was hungry and I stopped when I was full. And that's what created the weight loss for her. But what I have seen in a lot of folks, especially people who have a struggle of a diet history, is now we are creating habits of overeating too. So if we are allowing this sort of full surrender slingshot effect and we're overeating, there is the ability to train yourself to consume a certain amount of food. We see it in our program all the time where people will go through it and they will start with the habit, start working on it, and then all of a sudden they're going, oh my God, I cannot eat like I used to. I just, holy shit, I used to eat so much. I couldn't fit that in my body now. How did that ever happen? And it's because over time, you train your body to consume that much food. So yeah, it might have worked out really well for her. It sounds like she's got some good habits. She's eating when she's hungry, stopping when she's full. She didn't have to really try anything or do anything to lose the weight, which I think is great. But some people will develop the habit of overeating and emotional overeating when you throw the boundaries out the window. And I'm not talking about diet boundaries, calorie counting, things like that. I'm just talking about like, we got to stay present here and in tune with the process.
Well, the boundaries of your body, right? And that's the other thing, is you do become more sensitive to those hunger and fullness cues the closer and more consistent you are paying attention. So over time, we do get full sooner, potentially, or we're just really aware of it now. The thing that has been turned off in our brain because we've been eating according to those food rules, calorie counts, and the clock are no longer how we're determining when we eat and how much we eat. And so we become connected to that fullness and hunger cue and react a lot more quickly. And also, so much of overeating, I think when you are restricting, is that boomerang. It is seeking that relief. So if we're not always looking for the relief from our diet, then over time, food does become a little less appealing. The food noise gets quieter. The desire to eat all the bad foods kind of go away, right? There's not the same degree of rebellion happening, or that forbidden fruit is no longer forbidden. So all of these little reasons why we eat start to fade away and diminish when you give yourself permission to eat all the things. And so that novelty drifts away and food becomes a little less enticing, a little less appealing. And that creates space for us to pay closer attention to our hunger and fullness cues. I'm assuming she has done some work into intuitive eating if she's talking about hunger and fullness in that way.
Yeah, probably so. And I lost my train of thought, so we'll just leave it at that.
Sounds about right.
So I know I mentioned that at the 6-month mark, I had a really hard time. So that was probably the time that I really wanted to quit. But trust me, I had way more meltdowns than just that. Like, that was just when it was the worst. At the beginning, I think I would have a meltdown like once a week. I had my first one right before I left for that Australia Bali trip. And I had a couple in Bali, I'm not gonna lie.
So I'll get one time feeling down. So you know that it happens. There's a belt that is supposed to go here. It doesn't fit.
And yeah, like at least once a week I would have one. And luckily I haven't had one in a long time. I actually can't even remember the last time I've had one. But at the beginning, I just had so many bad body image days. I also just had so many doubts that this was even gonna work. And I would just be like an example of this massive failure. Of course, that didn't happen. And having rational people by my side was really essential.
Okay, so having a support system, a community, does appear to be incredibly valuable. Who would have thought?
Shocker. Yeah, I think that that's one of the most important things, and I've seen it time and time again on both ends of the spectrum, by the way, the extreme dieting end and the extreme anti-dieting end and everywhere in the middle. When you have the posse behind you, then you start borrowing their thoughts, you start borrowing their beliefs, and you can try them on and pull from them when you need them. And so, just making sure that the community that you're in is the direction you want to be going, but is really helpful. So you don't get brainwashed the wrong way. But we all are susceptible to brainwashing to a degree because of the emotional impact that these things have on us. Somebody might go, "Oh, big deal. You have a 27-inch waist and you can't wear your swimsuit belt." But when every second of your life is focused on your body and it's your currency and it's what people like about you or hate about you or talk about or whatever, every inch matters. Every piece of clothing gets a little tighter as evidence that you are failing at life somehow. And everybody knows it, they can see it. So kudos to her for sharing her journey and walking people through it, taking all the photos. That cannot be easy to do when you are really struggling and going through what you're going through. But I think that it probably helped a lot of people.
Yeah, in fact, I'm pretty sure that the massive following that she acquired was through telling this story. And I think it's an important one because I'm with you. Those body image struggles are so real. And taking those photos, the photos that we historically as dieters would burn, would never see the light of day, would delete, delete, delete. And she's out here sharing it on the internet. As you said, the pain is the same. It doesn't really matter what size body somebody is in. Ultimately, if you have attached your value to your body and your body is changing in ways that is uncomfortable, then absolutely it's going to be a painful experience. I just wanted to share that little journey. The whole thing's about 45 minutes long. So by all means, check it out if you want to see all the details. But I just wanted to share with our audience what the process looks like for some, not everyone. Mine looked a little different. I think yours might have looked a little different. Everybody's looks different in some capacity. But I appreciate the story. Anything else on your end?
No, I think that was a good choice. Good find. I really enjoyed hearing her perspective and her story. And now I just feel like I need to go dig around and see if she's still alive and making content somewhere so that I can get to know where are they now
I
situation.
know I'm super new to this YouTube fitness space. So it's been fun to discover new people that I didn't know existed. But it's interesting because a lot of them have abandoned their YouTube channels. But listen, I would love for anyone to comment if this resonates with you. If you see yourself in Stephanie's story, please go ahead and let us know. Have you tried to gain weight on purpose? Are you afraid of gaining weight on purpose? Have you tried intuitive eating? Might be the better question, because I know this is one of people's greatest fears in joining a program like ours, Unstuffed or intuitive eating, is the fear of weight gain. And I think she shows a pretty honest look at what it really does look like. So I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback. But also, if you liked it and you want to see more, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your way out. We'll see you on the next one.